What you saw there was American Charlotte Cates standing on the steps of the Vancouver Art Gallery, praising and glorifying terrorists. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Brian Lilley and Warren Kinsella. Warren, you have been writing about, talking about, analyzing for some time now various hate networks across this country. You've written books about it. But since October 7th, the terrorist attack on Israel, since October 7th, the praise for the Hamas terrorists that perpetrated those crimes has been gone unfettered, unchecked. And here we just have yet another example of someone who is an American on Canadian soil praising these terrorists, yet nothing is done about it. She heads up an organization called Samidoun, which is Palestine Prisoners Network to help them. What do we know, and how on earth is she and others allowed to operate on Canadian soil?
And they are, in fact, allowed to operate in Canadian soil for a number of years now. They have operated as a non-profit, not a charity, a non-profit, federally registered. So the Trudeau guys, during their tenure in government, allowed Samidoun to become a non-profit, which means that they don't pay taxes, which means that they don't pay HST on goods and services, and which means that they're not terribly transparent about where they're getting money from. And just to recap, so people know what she's saying, Charlotte Cates, this American, on the steps of the Vancouver Art Gallery, long live October 7th. We stand with the brave Palestinian resistance and their heroic and brave action on October 7th. And she calls Hamas, Palestine, Islamic Jihad, and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the resistance. And she's still walking the streets of Vancouver. She's married to a guy named Khalid Barakat. Barakat is a Palestinian. I'm not quite sure how he got here either, because he was deported from the United States a number of years ago. And he's on videos online, you can find them very easily, where he describes himself as part of the leadership of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which is a listed terrorist entity in Canada. So they're people we don't want here. And B'nai B'rith and others have said, deport them and do what Germany has done and declare Samidoun a banned organization, or what Israel has done, which is call them a terrorist group. But the Trudeau government hasn't done that. They have continued to let them operate without any restriction whatsoever, and have given this nonprofit status to them, which is a great benefit to them. And it is, there's many things the Trudeau guys do that are outrageous. This one is one of the worst. This is a group that advocates for terrorism, and we're allowing them not only to operate in Canada, we've given them the federal stamp of approval, and it's not right.
You know, Brian, just putting this Charlotte Cates back into the frame. Yes, this organization has been banned in Germany. Others have declared it a terrorist entity, yet allowed to operate without impunity here in Canada. And that another failure of the Trudeau Liberals. But Cates just recently went over to Iran, who we know is behind so much of the funding for these for Hamas, other terrorist groups. She went there to receive a human rights award in Iran, the very country that persecutes women for daring to not cover their heads, for daring to protest against the Iranian regime. She went there to get a human rights award. Is this a joke?
I wish it were a joke. It's not. It is stranger than fiction. She is, one of these great, strong feminists here in Canada. And then here she is. She goes on Iranian TV, wears full hijab, so that, the morality police don't beat her to death, which happens in Iran if women don't cover their heads properly. Goes on Iranian TV and talks about the work that she's doing to support the resistance here in Canada.
داشتم صحبت میکردم درباره فعالیتی که و حمله بسیار موفقی که و قهرمانانه در هفته همینطور چون میگن فلسطین باید آزاد باشه. من در کانادا هم همینطور برای من اقامه دعوا کردن، اتهامات به من بستن. چرا؟ برای اینکه
So this just backs up what Warren's saying. Like, why is this organization, Samidoun, allowed to operate? Why is Charlotte Cates allowed to operate in Canada? They are clearly aligned with the Islamic regime in Iran. She clearly supports terrorism. She's done webinars about supporting the Palestinian resistance, the Islamic Jihad, the Popular Liberation Front, and Hamas. She has hosted on YouTube shows that she's produced here in Canada members of Hamas who have engaged in things like denialism of the rapes that happened on October 7th. It's outrageous what they're able to do here, and they should not be allowed to operate.
And although YouTube is now and Instagram have now kicked her off and Samidoun off of their platforms for being associated with violent criminal organizations. And just, Brian's point's really important because this just happened now, right? She was over in Iran and getting this human rights award from the country that has the worst human rights record in the world after Yemen. So they're the worst in the world. But let me tell you who she got the award with. She got the award with Mohammed Reza Zahidi, who was the head of the IRGC, a banned terrorist organization in Canada and around the world, who was dispatched by Israel back in April. And she also got it with Ismail Haniyeh, he was the head of Hamas's political bureau until Israel got rid of him too. Those are the people that Charlotte Cates was being put at the same level with. We need to pay attention to that.
And something none of us have mentioned yet, an award from a regime that has been the sponsor of the October 7th attacks. Correct. They are a financial backer and sponsor of Hamas, of Hezbollah, of the Houthis in Yemen. They are the sponsor of the worst terrorism happening in the world right now. And they're giving her an award for being such a good supporter.
Final word to you, Warren. You just mentioned, of course, this is the sort of stuff that we need to be paying attention to. Well, we here at the Toronto Sun have been writing about this. Who is funding these protests that are happening all over the streets of North America and in Europe? This organization, Samidoun, takes in a lot of money. Our colleague at the National Post, Terry Glavin, has written about this, that there are multiple entities that are funding these protests because they're way too organized. The tents that have popped up all over the university. What do we know about where some of this money is going?
Well, there's some of the money that has come into Samidoun comes to them from a group called the Alliance for Global Justice, which on its own website talks about political prisoners from Hamas, Al-Qaeda, and the PFLP. But the point you make is the most important one, right? If you step back from this thing, what are the Trudeau guys doing, right? Because all of these organizations have some connection to the federal government. They're allowing Samidoun to operate. This week, the same week that she's getting a human rights award from Iran, they revoked the charity status of two major longtime Jewish charities that build parks and help cancer patients. They revoked their status. And as we revealed in our newspaper last week, there are a number of so-called pro-Palestinian charities that need to be investigated because of possible links to terrorism or extremism in the Middle East. The Trudeau guys have chosen. They're turning a blind eye to the bad stuff that's happening on one side, and they're coming down hard on Jewish organizations. And it's not right, and it's not fair.
Well, let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And go to thetorontosun.com. You're going to find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.